Right, so we're going to start so that we can look decently at the photos and see the history of the Old Testament. That we can see the real truth in the Old Testament that they found, and that we can more have a correspondence of what we found and what's really there and what they say in the Bible. Well, there's David's palace. There you can see nicely now the rooms that they got here. The rooms are there, the rooms, and there's the palace itself. There you can see what they built it with. Everything is much more clear to see it like that. And as we now I'm very much about that was the one that they got there, that the guy tried to make a picture.
Oh, okay.
To what it must have looked like after they had all the duct up and everything.
Okay.
He tried to make a picture, more or less what it looked like. So it's very nice on the mountain there. It must have been very nice because if he's there, you can totally see over the whole area. So it's actually very nice if you look like it, and it's really very nice. Then we get to the Rosetta Stone. Now here we've got more info about the Rosetta Stone. That is this is a book copy from Ptolemy V. Ephanes in 196 before Christ. It was found in 1799 near the mouth of the Nile River and had 3 forms of writings on it. That was the hieroglyphic, the Demotic, and the Greek on that stone. See, now you can see the stone better.
Yeah.
Now you can see what's going on there. That was unlocking those writings was easier so they can, the hieroglyphic inscription in the Egypt writings.
Yes.
They took that and it was easier for them to get the meanings of those hieroglyphics that they had in there.
Okay.
So those 3 writings in there helped them.
All right.
So that is there in the museum. Okay? Then look at the Arama coming down. The Arba tablets.
Yes.
That was just a place in Egypt where they found it. And yes, some of the tablets, they found quite a lot of those tablets.
All right.
The place name is Tel El Amarna. That was found there. They found quite a lot of tablets and stuff there. That is in modern day Egypt. There's 200 miles of Cairo on the east bank of the Nile. That's these tablets, the little tablets that they got, was about 1,400 to 1,360 before Christ. And there were vessels between princes and governors of Syria and Palestine to the Pharaoh. This was in the time of Egypt, deliverance from Egyptian bondage. So it's quite interesting, the stuff that they must have get there and read it. It must be very nice to be able to read that stuff.
Yeah.
Really. It deals with the political, military and economic problems. And that is how they learn what's going on there.
Okay.
Then we go to the Egyptian antiques. The Osiris Apple god. There's the one god that I had. I also laughed. As I went through all, I thought to myself, how can you have gods like this? It's really, that was an Egyptian god that was found in the pyramids that led to the temple Osiris Apis near Memphis. The temple disappeared and the pyramids found there was famous, it's a famous Giza and the great Sphinx, you know about those. That was the temples that was found there. That's the vaults. In the temples, I will kind of see the temples just now. The Great Phoenix, which was discovered in 1850. There was 141 phoenixes. That is now, okay, we'll see the phoenix just now. And the large number of vaults, that is the vaults that they found there. That is the vaults that they found there. That is the bull, the Apis bull. And that's the vaults. That was all in those pyramids. In the vaults was a large number of bodies of the Apis bull, that's that one. And they were regarded as the successive incarnations of the god Osiris. Osiris, that little thingy there, we see, that is the incarnation of Osiris, August. Those are the bulls, you know.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, oh, but please, I'm so glad I didn't live in that house. There's the pyramid Gaza. It's a hidden corridor discovered in the pyramid. That side is the corridor that was in that pyramid there. Okay, that's the corridor in there, and there's a great phoenix. Here is the pyramids, and the one phoenix. And as you see how small is the people here. Just think how long they built. You know, people look very small with this big stuff, you know. And the time they must have taken to build that stuff is unreal. This pyramid was found in the temple of Isis Apix near Memphis. Okay? In there was also found paintings, furniture, and literary texts on stone and papyrus were found, and that added to the knowledge we have of Egypt, religion, and the influence of the Israel slaves. Now you must know, if they had that, if I can say the word nonsense, influence to the Israelite slaves, how did it influence their religion to God? Now you can see why God at the end said, oh no, I'm pulling out here.
Yes.
You know, and he left them. Pithom and Ramses have been identified. Ramses contained the temple of Ramses II about 1290 to 1224 before Christ. If you look at that, let's go a bit down. There's a big phoenix, that's the one in front that I showed you just now, just closer up. There's the temple of Ramses. Again, look the size of this person.
Yeah.
Look the size of this person here. It's just, you can't believe that they did that out of stone.
Yeah.
Into the mountain. It's a lot of work. So we look at Exodus 1 verse 11. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. There they are. So there we got it from the Bible. There they are. Mamnefta, let me go closer. The stela is found. Mamnefta was Ramses' second successor, so it was after that one that we had just now, about 1224 to 1260 before Christ. And this stela of him mentions among his victories that Israel was desolated, though seed was not, and Palestine was become a defensive widow of Egypt. See, now you can see all these funny things here on top, and they gods, and it's ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. I wish that, that our people will do all this effort, that we will do it for God.
To God, exactly.
And what are we doing today? Actually nothing. Really. So Nippur. There's Nippur, that's the area of Nippur. An 1889 excavation on this site yielded over 30,000 tablets. The temporary library of over 20,000 tablets, which dated from the 3rd millennium before Christ, was uncovered. Some of the tablets contains lists of rulers going back to the mythical and semi-mythical times. There's an English that Gilgamesh, remember we discussed it?
Yeah.
The tablet is a Sumerian story about the flood, which was found in the recovery library of Ushur-Banipal of the 7th century before Christ. Now, we look a bit to the story, what's on there. That's quite interesting. Most probably you read it already in your book.
In the book.
So, the gods, headed by Anu and Enlil, had resolved to destroy mankind. The hero was Ziusudra, who appeared before the council of the gods to protest their destruction of mankind. An ark was built, the mighty wind blew, a flood raged, and sacrifice of oxen and sheep were made after the flood. So God Enu and God Enel, who was spoken of on the tablet of Kalkish. Now let's see who they are. There they are. That was the two gods that they had. Okay, that were the two gods. Now there's Zeezudra. That tells again the story of the hero Zeezudras. Is the flood story of the Gilgamesh. Now this Zeezudras, this tablet that they got, tell again about this guy that won in that story.
Yeah.
It's the one that talk about this other one in that story. Okay. So here we go further. The Shushan Palace was found. They spoke about it in Esther 1 verse 2. That in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace. That is the palace.
Okay.
That's the palace we were sitting in. Okay. So it's interesting now that we can get the places.
Yeah.
Exactly. He was sitting somewhere in that palace.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that palace he was sitting. The city was in Persia and is today modern Iran.
Okay.
Darius and Xerxes, who identified with the period of Ezra and Nehemiah, used Susa and their capital. This is the capital where the palace was found. Okay, this is now where the palace was where they found the palace. Hammurabi. I'm just going fast through it
Okay.
because we did the whole thing last time.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna go into it every time.
Okay.
That was Hammurabi. The Hammurabi stone was also found in Susa in 1901 and contains the laws of Hammurabi.
Okay.
On the top panel of the stone is depicts a king who is standing to receive the laws of the seated God. The last time you couldn't see it so clearly because it's too small. There is the God and he's receiving the rules from the God.
Oh, okay.
You see, now you can see it.
Yeah, you can see.
You couldn't see it, the other pictures was too small. Right. Babylon, the Great Zagharat. This is also a very known one. With the Great Zagharat, we will reach the Ishtar Gate to enter. Now you will see they made also a picture about this. Is very nice. Within the city walls were the famous hanging gardens of Babylon, which were constructed to please the queen, who desired the mountains scenery of her homeland. Within the city was the Great Zagharat, or the temple van Marduk. There's a god, their god. Possible the Tower of Babel, mentioned in Genesis 11, verse 2 to 9. It consisted of 6 square stages, one on top of the other. The last one was crowned by a small chapel for the god Marduk. And I can't believe Marduk, or whatever, Marduk. There's the god Marduk. There's the temple. Just see, it's a dead thing. It's a little sticky stone. I don't know what it is made of. Even if it's a little sticky gold, it doesn't matter. It's a dead thing. Look, that temple that was made for him. That is made for that dead thing. Just imagine, for that dead thing, that the temple and everything in there. That was the construction. That is the Easter Gate. Sorry, drawer. That's the Easter Gate. That is the Hanging Garden. That is the Marduk's temple. Coming there. It must have looked beautiful.
Yeah.
It must have been beautiful. And that's where the queen was sitting there, nice in the gardens. Now we know about Ur.
Yeah.
This site is Ur and identified in 1853. It's actually very nice that you can see all these places here that they made, that they found. And that's also a Zagharat type of thing. They found there is Tel Obi. As you can see, there's something there. You know, you can see it's going up. Okay? The Zagrat still stood out clearly there where you can see. The mount near Ur, named Tel Al Obeid, that's the other side, was excavated in a rain, and ruins of small temple which has been decorated with figures of lions and bulls made of copper plates was found. Their tongues, teeth and eyes were made of colored stones and shells. It must be beautiful to see it. A temple consisted of a solid platform approached by a flight of stairs. On top of the platform stood the temple. The foundation tablet showed that it had been built by a king about 3,000 before Christ. Now we go and look a bit. That is that piece, that hobble thing here.
Oh,
That is here something. Okay? So they dug up there and they see what's going on there. That is the bulls by Tel Obeid. That's the golden stuff or copper stuff or whatever it was. They got this beard, this is copper. That must be PP there, it's copper. Beautiful. That, remember, we spoke about this. The war and the slaves. Remember we spoke about that one?
Yeah.
The stand of Ur, remember, we spoke about it where we see the inlaid mosaic on one side depicts scenes of war in which representatives of the king, who was identified by his height, demonstrate from his chariot and is led by soldiers in a group of naked captives whose arms are tied behind their backs. Okay? On that side, you can see it there, on his backs. The second row of the standard depicts the royal army advancing. Now, I would say this is this lot, because they're very royal and they got their things and their long coats all neatly done. Okay? Their royal arms and everything is in there. The warriors are clothed in long cloaks and copper helmets and are armed with axes. That's the way I showed. The third row depicts chariots. What did I write there? But it was something throwers and corpses on an enemy through us. This is chariot throwers, yes, chariots. Chariots, something throwers. What do they have there?
Like horses, I think.
This hose and something they throw. This is like a
like an arrow or something.
like a spice. What's a spice?
Spear.
A spear, something
Spear,
like
yeah,
something like
spear.
that. Yes.
Okay.
Chariots and throwers. Let's see. A third row depicts chariots, throwers, and corpses of the enemies thrown on the ground. Corpses of the enemy. Oh yes, the corpses of the enemies. They're thrown and gone. There's you see there's the thing they throw. That guy got it there. There's the corpses laying on. There's the chariots. So they just go in. There's also one they kill. You see. So that's the army going on.
Yes.
I think this is also to do with dead people. So that is what's going on there. Okay. The backside of the panel. Now I got the backside. But I didn't have the last time. I found the backside.
Okay.
The backside of the standard earth, the backside of the panel portrays a scene of peace in which the king and his family are attending a banquet. Musicians play their instruments and servants bring food. Apparently, the scene is a victory scene. So, that is what that's supposed to be. We go on. That's the third dynasty of Earth. They all have these big places. If you see in every town, there's big places. Just see the size of these people. Area is this big places. We think about our buildings, but we've got machines and stuff building that stuff. There wasn't machines that time. There was people doing that.
That's true.
So it's really a lot of work. The king. There's a Stella of okay, that is going on. That's the third. Going to the Stella of Earth. There you can see that now nicely. The king who ruled over about the time of Abram rebuilt the walls of Ur, Itzachar Palace, and numerous public buildings. The building of Zachar is described in the stela of Ur Numa, a slab of white limestone. That is that one. The stela depicts the king in an attitude of prayer with flying eagle carrying vases from with water flowing. So yeah, that is the way on top. What's happening? A panel king is thanking his God for the gift of water. Another panel shows the king standing before the moon goddess Nanna in the god Nana to receive orders from building the Zagharat. Now, this is here surely at the bottom. I don't exactly know. There's the one God. That's the one God that I know. Now, that is the king, and that's the other one. It's very unclear, but it seems like that's the two gods. That. The next two panels show the worker construction, the Zagharat. Yeah, that is the other bottom one with the ladder and all that thing going up and so on. The temple was equipped with a kitchen for the preparation of animal sacrifices for sacrifice. The flesh on an animal was cooked and prepared. The meal has to be shared among the gods, the priests, and the worshippers. Yeah. To think that is their gods.
Yeah.
Not alive. Not alive. There's the moon goddess Dinjal, or Nanjal, what moon goddess, whatever. And there's the Nana. There's a king and a goddess of Nanjal, that top part that I show also, that is what's there.
Two.
That's a two. And here you can see very nicely in the photo here. It's better than the other photo. You can see also much better here than the other one I showed. What's going on there. The gods. So yeah. The black obelisk of Shalmaneser III. It covered the period of 859 to 824 before Christ and found at Kala. It depicts Jehu of Israel along with objects bowing before Shalmaneser while bringing tribute. Under the representation of Jehu are the words tribute to Jehu, not God Yahu. It's Jehu, the son of Omri. Okay, it's not our God. Okay, the black obelisk fills in a gap the biblical narrative and shows how the Hazael Yahu coalition was attacked by the Assyrians with disastrous results to Syrian and Israel about 842, 838 before Christ. So again we see they say that story is filling in another gap again, that we didn't know what was going on. They got that and they found out, okay, there's another gap full in history that they didn't know what it's about. Nineveh. We go further in Nineveh. Remains of the palace of Ashurbanipal. There's the palace. You can see the top, the two on the top. The remains of the palace Shamnicherib in 705 to 681 before Christ. And Ashurbanipal 669 to 627 before Christ were found. And these two, as mentioned in Genesis 10 verse 11 and 2 Kings 19 verse 36. In Genesis 10 verse 11 it said, out of that land with forth Ashur and building Nineveh and the city Rehoboth of Kala. And in 2 Kings 19 verse 36, so Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt in Nineveh. So it's mentioned in the Bible. Okay. The library, that's the library. Now you can see nicely what the library looked like. The library of Ashurbanipal was uncovered. It is the first known collection of writings by an individual. It contained the Assyrian legend of the flood, the Gilgamesh epic. It contained also an allusion to the creation, but little of the coincidence with the narrative of Genesis. The writing glorified the local gods Marduk of Babylon. We already saw him now. Okay? And Ashur of Gola, and Enlil or Bel of Nippur. Enlil and Bel of Nippur. There's the rest. That is now what's now in our museum. That is the pieces that's now in our museum. Okay? The tablets that was in that museum is now in our decent museum. Yeah. There is the remains of Sennacherib. Like found the, again, see how small is that people. Even the buildings are smaller than buildings. But they found that. There's the palace. There's the bull. They're half human, half or animal. There's the lion hunt. They had the hunted lions. You can actually see now nice and clearly. Remember last time you couldn't see it so nice. Now I can see it nicely. They kill the bulls. You see? They're hunting the bulls. Okay? After the bulls, the lions. The lions. There's the temple, and the Nebu temple. Okay, let me just quickly tell you the creation myth that they had before in that creation, what they said on the creation. They said, the great god Ea slew Epsu. And Epsu means chaos. Okay, they are in chaos, eh? And Epsu, consort Tiamat, stirred up the powers of evil to avenge her lover. Murdoch was chosen by the god as a champion. He slew Tiamat and made heaven and earth out of her body. The topics gave a rather complete history of Assyria and thereby have given much background information, political and social conditions during Israel's 7th century struggles against the threat from the north. So that is the creation myth they had. Okay, so the earth is made from a body, and today I think the round earth is definitely everything except of a woman body. It's a bit round, eh? So now we laugh, but I won't say anything about it. But now we are in Mari. The palace of Semiramis, a local king, was exceptional. Prosperous rule of almost 30 years was ended when Hammurabi of Babylon captured and destroyed the city in the 18th century before Christ. The palace contains nearly 300 rooms, within which were concentrated all of the most important administrators' offices. Numerous wall murals and hundreds of small objects were uncovered. Thousands of archives were discovered in various scribes' chambers. They consist of diplomatic correspondence and reports sent in from all parts of the country, as well as historical archives and letters exchanged between King Shamshi Adad I and Assyria, and his two sons shortly before 1800 before Christ. Economic and legal texts were also abundant. Altogether, the texts have extended the knowledge and Assyrian geography and history and have give a graphic picture of life of the period. Let's just see quickly. There's the bell god, the Ashur god, bell god, Enlil we saw, Temple of Mari. That's the Temple of Mari they found. And in the Temple of Mari, there were 300 rooms. Was it 300? Yeah, 300 rooms. There's some of the rooms, some of the places they got there. This computer is just beautiful actually to think of. Now I wonder by myself, normally if you get stone, it must be very cold inside. No, staying inside a mountain, it must be cold. Staying inside a rock. Now I wonder, how did they keep it warm? Did they put material inside? How did they keep it warm? must be. What, did it always have fire inside?
I would think so. It could maybe
You know,
Like what
burning
you-
all the time.
like what they maybe used to do when they were doing the mining in the old times, and they would make a fire, but they would have to find a flue where the smoke can go out.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's strange. As I went through it, every time it comes through my mind, you know, isn't it very cold?
Cold in there.
Yeah.
I think it will be cold.
I mean, we stay here in houses built, and even me with a tiled floor like
Yeah,
this, it's
still
cold.
Very cold, yeah.
It's cold. What to say about a thing like that all over? So yeah, it's quite. Think about it, you know. It must be cold. So yes, here you can see further parts of the building, of the palace. There you can see the large
Yes.
palace for the Mari, 300 rooms. Now you must think, 300 rooms is quite a big palace,
Yeah,
eh?
that is
Quite a big palace.
made of stone. It's
Yeah.
actually very big.
It's big
Mm.
and made out of hand.
Mm.
Now you can see there was slavery. And you know that the Hebrews actually was used for slavery, eh?
Mm.
The Israelites.
Yeah.
They were used for slavery. Okay, now this is quite found in Nusi. This is in northern Mesopotamia. The tablet reconstruct. Okay, that is just where they found it. That was the kingdom of Mitanni, 1450 to 1350 before Christ, and the language that is written on it was Akkadian.
Mm.
This is in the museum. Now let's just see. Here they say a tablet was found in kingdom of Mitanni. Again, as I say there, it's exactly the dates, 1450, 1350 before Christ, and it was written in Akkadian, that's that one, eh? Excavations at the east side of Ashur, near Kirkuk, in modern Iraq.
Mm.
Yield thousands of clay tablets written when the Mitanni kingdom in the 15th century before Christ controlled the area were found. The tablets were written in Old Babylonian cuneiform script by Burinian scribes. They reflect customs and laws in northern Mesopotamia, which are similar to many of those in the Hebrew patriarchs. Genesis is mentioned in Genesis 16, Genesis 27, and 29 to 31.
Oh, okay.
That if you read there, that is more or less what I found there. Yeah. These tablets were written in Old Babylonian cuneiform script. As I said, yes. Rachel, taking now. We discussed that the first chapter about Rachel. Now this is where they found it. To understand what the story there was. So that is, a similar tablet. Rachel taking the house gods of her father Laban. In Genesis, Abraham introduced Sarah as his sister, and the presentation of the slave girl to the new brides of Leah and Rachel. They found their understanding from there. So now you can see there, as I said last time, how the pagan stuff already filtrated into God's people.
Yes, yeah.
But still God pulled them out there again. He helped them again. Okay, they found another stone describing a court proceeding. Okay, so this one, if I correctly, because this is the court proceeding one. Yeah, no, this is the court proceeding stone that they found.
Mm.
Yeah, that was the court proceeding one. Okay, in the library was found hundreds of tablets. On the one side of the library was a temple bird for Baal, and on the other side of the library was a dragon. Okay, then you've got Baal, the temple in Syria. Where can you think? Baal. You know, Baal was where they burned the babies. Eh? There's Baal, and there's the dragon.
Mm.
So, yeah. Very interesting. These temples had great inner rooms. Now listen carefully what they also have. they have a Holy of Holies also in those
temples.
in those temples,
Okay.
where the images of their gods were placed. Before the holy room was another room and a forecourt where the remains of an altar, much like Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. They had that also there. So they copied quite a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Here they discovered, I don't know if I found the right ones here, because it was very difficult to find it. So I'm not 100% sure if it is the ones that was found there, but it is similar ones. Okay? The small golden amulets in the shape of a naked woman, which reveals the fertility cult, was popular. There's a similar thing. I don't know if that was that one. You understand?
Right.
But that is more or less the thing what I found there. Okay? A small statue of sitting fertility goddess, which have represented Anath, the consort of Baal. That was that one. Again, I say that is a similar thing. I'm not sure if it's that one. Okay? On a great stone stela of Baal, a god is shown with an ox horn on his helmet. But that is enough that. On God showed his helmet, a club in his right hand and a stylus thunderbolt ending in a spear in his left hand. Now what I found, this, what would I say? This thing in the middle. Now what I found when I looked on internet, they found different ones. And they got it in a female and they got it in a male and they got different things there. With the spear, the different things in their hands. And so they got different ones. Also all on these ancient stuff. Yeah. So they're not all women or all male. They got it in different ones. Now, the reason for that, I don't know. Maybe they could do it in male and female. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't part of that. I wasn't part of that. That is the Baal one that they got in Syria also. You see, this is the male one. You see? Yeah. And that is El God. Also they found. That is the El God they found in Samaria. So that's originals. Okay. In Babylos, the photo remains the layers of. Okay. Let's go down. Okay, let's first see the gods. That is the Mot God and the Astarte goddess. It's all fertility and all that nonsense. So yeah, you've got the gods. And all this little yeah. Okay, that's the ruins of Babylos, and it's 5 layers. Now this is quite interesting. This is built one place on top of another place, on top of another place. Like Jerusalem, on top of our current Jerusalem is built on top of the old one.
All right.
So if you break away all current Jerusalem, you will find the old one underneath it.
Underneath it, okay.
Yeah, that is what's it. Now that one, this photo remains 5 layer cities that occupied during the period of 5,000 to 1,200 before Christ. These cities, the one on top of the other one there, were Phoenician, Amorites, Hyksos, Egyptians, Babylonians, and Persians. A lot of this work you won't get in your book.
Yeah.
Okay, so
right.
a lot of this you won't get in your book. Okay. That was the 5 cities. There was one on top of the other one, on top of the other one that they built. The Phoenicians, the Amorites, the Hyksos, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Persians. So just to think there was 5 different cultures that lived one on top of the other. The Ugaritic texts provide means of understanding certain Old Testament words as well as Hebrew grammar. They speak El, God, the leading deity of the Ugaritic faith. Now you saw the El God.
El God, yeah.
The El God.
God.
Yeah. Okay. This is their God story. El was king of the gods,
Yeah.
and the wise old father of years. He was often represented as a bull, which is well-known symbol of masculinity. Come back to the bull.
Yes.
You know about overseas with that one thing of the king? He presented the bull. You know? Do you know about it?
No.
Okay, leave it there then. Okay. He was considered to be the father of other gods, with the exception of Baal, who was called Dagon's son. Other gods came to him for permission to start the new enterprises. Okay, so he's giving the permission. He's the father god. Baal was the fighting god, who was a god of rain, storm, and fertility. Among the myths of Baal was the account of his fight with Mot. I showed you Mot already. An ancient opponent, although Baal claimed domination over Mot, his time was up and Mot was able to gain victory without battle. Baal was forced onto the earth, which meant that the clouds which the rain disappeared, resulting in a drought. El and Anath mourned the disappearance of Baal and offered sacrifices. Anath attacked Mot with a sword and splits him. In her serve, she scatters him with millstones, she grit him, and that the birds might eat him, his remains.
Oh.
Okay? So yeah. Apparently Mot represented a dry season as well as the ripening fruit of grain. Baal represented the rainy season. Eventually Baal returned to earth with rain and fertility, and Mot was banished. Okay, we got Palestine now. Here we've got the area was inhabited with non-Semitic people, and they were cave dwellers. This area were captured by Semitic people in 2500 before Christ and held until the end of the Hebrew kingdom. The tunnel was dug about 1500 before Christ. That was what we spoke about from both sides and coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jerusalem. The modern city is standing on top of the old city, just as I said just now. Yeah. You know about the tunnel that was also dig. The temple area is covered by a great dome of the rock. It cannot be touched. They found a Siloam tunnel, which was constructed in the 8th century of King Hezekiah, about 715 to 687 before Christ. They built a tunnel to carry water from the spring of Gideon to the pool of Siloam. But this is a bit more interesting.
Oh.
That is the tunnel that the water was in. Now here you can see the water is still flowing there. You see there at the bottom. Isn't it really fantastic that the water is still there?
Yeah.
Like it's proven because the water is still there.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not that it was past, it's still there. Okay. It's quite easy. That's okay, the water's not flowing out anymore there.
Yeah.
By the Baal facility. These two photos is a tunnel they found on the western wall of the Dome of the Rock. This is now, again, when you go, now this is not part of the book.
Yeah.
This is now more giving you more of the western wall, but they found also extra. But it's very, very interesting. They found a doorway that go into the wall on the one side of the western wall. There's a tunnel and they found rooms, etc. There. Now come quickly, just for interest sake, look at that. This is part, as they go, I think the opening they show a little bit lower off. But this is going underneath that western wall. They found it there and they went in there. And they found this. This is very nicely. There's little ways that's going
in there.
Going in there. That's the Temple Mount. Now you see here, this was the one where they found. They didn't know that. This they found, they opened up there.
Yes.
And they found it there.
Okay.
And they went in there and they found it underneath.
Yeah.
They went in there. Now this is the western wall that they stand like this doing. This is that wall. Where
Okay.
the Jews do the Western, that's the Western
Yes.
Wall.
Mm.
Okay, that's where they stand. And pray, if I may say that. But that's the Wailing Wall
Yeah.
of Jerusalem on the Dome of the Rock, where,
Yeah.
where they want to build the new temple.
You're right.
That is where it is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And that's where Solomon David's temple was built on.
Okay.
That, yeah, that's where they are. That is part of where they started digging and getting everything dug up and everything. That is part of the channel. If you can see, there's the people on top. There's
Yeah.
the wall. That is underneath.
Yes.
You see,
Okay.
they open up. It's
Yeah.
underneath.
Mm.
And they found quite a lot of places. And these are actually, they think it's the Roman places where the rooms was. Now, I don't know exactly how they figured that one out, but I would say this most probably like that it was in date. That's what they say what it is.
Mm.
But I think that is how they figured that one out. But I reckon that's what the Roman soldiers, the Romans stayed. That one also, they reckon, or it can that be a room, or it can be maybe a kitchen. They
Yeah.
also said.
Oh.
Also inside. It's just more of that where they open up there. It's actually quite interesting to see how they open up. See, it's all underneath,
Oh, thank you.
underneath in the mountain, in the Dome of the Rock, under there. That is one of the seals, the ring seals that they found there. That was also dug up there. That was, they found it in that area.
Okay.
That was a seal. There's the Western Wall entrance now. They were, where I showed you, that is what it looked like now. The Western Wall heritage. Going in, they made a nice spot there.
Okay.
For the people. There's also inside, now you can see this is all extra, you know. People make it nice, this wasn't there, this is all extra, now that the people doesn't fall off.
Oh,
And,
oh, yeah.
you know,
That's-
so they put everything up there. There's also just a, but it's quite interesting. You see that all,
Yeah, trying to.
keep it safe. You know, because you get ugly people that will now hit a piece of stone out just to say, you know, the
Yeah.
stone is, you know that, you keep it safe. Now, very interesting, they reckon this wall is keeping the whole story up there. The whole
Okay.
setup. This
Mm.
wall is keeping it up there.
Oh, all right.
Of the whole building, whatever they call it. That's what they say there. So that's a holding wall. Quite easy. That is also dug up with the stairs. They didn't say where this is going to. But you can see there's stairs, but they didn't say where it's going to
Mm.
and how it's going down. They didn't go further. I don't think they it's far enough to say what's going on underneath it. Then you can see what's here, but they can't say what's there.
What?
At the
All
bottom,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
This is not so long yet that they work on this. Very interesting.
Oh.
Over all these years, the ritual bath is there. The water's in there.
All right.
The water's there. There you can see the water's
Yeah,
coming.
it's coming down here.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, it is.
That is fantastic there. The bath is there. And that is also a place where they reckon they came together or something there. It was a place where they gathered. They reckon here now, I couldn't figure out every beam, I reckon it's 500 years now. It's most probably from there to there it's cost 500 and how they built,
Okay.
you know, on it. It's the type of stone that change. You can see now a lot of places, you will see also now, you can see the stones change.
Yes.
And that is how they reckon how they work out.
Oh, all right.
And that is what I think what they mean by that.
All right.
That wasn't so clear, but that is what I think they mean by that. That is Jericho, the first wall of there's the first city that had a wall.
Mm.
That was Jericho, and they got it, found that also. Lachish. I'm just waiting, showing you the places that we spoke about.
Mm.
This is also fun, and you know, yeah, totally totally all the grass, everything over it. From the one side, this is from the other side.
Okay.
Lashish, that was also spoke about in the Bible. Just the temple of Megiddo that was found. We spoke about Megiddo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is Megiddo. The place of Omri. Just is showing the pictures. That was Omri found. We spoke about the ivory. Remember the palace of ivory
Yes.
in Omri, and that is the just a bit larger. But you can see the pictures. The ivory pictures. The god of Baal. Yeah, here we go. Now you can see what was the god of Baal.
Yeah.
And they burned their babies. Remember? They offered their babies. It was a very weird story. In the Qumran caves, there was found some stuff. But we go back to this one. You know the story about Baal? That they offer their babies.
Okay.
Yeah, they burn their babies. That was their offering to the babies. That was that, and they found the place where they did it. Didn't I put? Isn't this one of these that I've got here? One on top of this. Why do I have a feeling it was this one? Why didn't I sort this? I think it was this place. They found the place where they offered the babies. What they did, they even found the vases. They put the babies in, in vases, and they offered it to Baal. It was a stone thing where they put the babies in. They got the babies, and they found the vases with the babies in. And then the authorities, they took that all out, and they kept quiet about it. But the people that found it know about it. There's stories online, you can go and have a look. But there's proof that they gave the babies to Baal. They burned them, yeah. There's proof about it. You know about the Qumran caves? That they got the latest text that prove the Bible. You know about it?
No.
The lady that went into the Qumran caves, not the lady, it was... I think it was shepherds, and they throw stones and they heard it fall, and they went in and they found the biblical of the Qumran community. Okay. They found them and they got it out. It is all Bible proof, the New Testament, and I think it was from just before Christ to 70 after Christ. But they found those rolled up biblical parts, the scrolls, everything, the biblical scrolls they found, and it's actually proving and giving more detail of the Bible, and actually it's more New Testament stuff in there, and it's proving it's actually giving more, as I say, more data, info about what's going on. That is the Qumran community that they found. There's something else, that's the scroll.
Yeah.
There's the bottles they found. As you can see here, in there, you can see that's the gods that they had. You see there? There's the gods. Everything is there in the museum. There's the bottles. You can see clearly there. That's the bottles found. Or the vases, would I rather say, instead of bottles. Vases found. Now with chapter 2, I just want to give you again the photos, and then I'm going to fall in where we stopped last time, okay? This is the picture that we had, a bigger picture of the timeline, what we spoke about, that they work backwards towards towards Genesis, with the age of the people, how old they are, and everything. That was done in Genesis, I think 5 and 11, if I recall correctly. And they worked out. And as we see, with the 4 days before Adam and Eve, they worked it out 4004. So that is now 4004 before Christ. Remember, that is not the new time.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not the new time. It's 4004 before Christ, and then is Christ, and then the rest is coming on. Okay?
Yeah.
So there you have all of them. the flood, Babel, Abram, Moses, Lord, David, Babylon. Okay. The Sumerian writings and inventations, the Sumerians made a significant contribution of invention and developing the cuneiform of a wedge-shaped system of writing. Most of the tables found in various cities of Sumer deal with economic, legal, and administrative matters, but about 5,000 tablets have been discovered, which records myths, ethics, hymns, lamentations, proverbs, gables, and essays. The tablets are approximately 1,000 years older than the first biblical writing. Mathematical tables and dictionaries are prepared along with poetic narratives, hymns, proverbs, and essays. The Sumerian introduction of a wheel of arc and produce a calendar use of the use of the wheel enabled them to transport farm products and cities and to speed up pottery making. And to think that was the beginning of our calendar. How they work it out, only they know. Only they know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
Alright.
And maybe the more intelligent people will know. I don't know how they work it out from there. I presume it's most probably something to do with this marks and this little I don't know what it is.
Kind of like a compass.
yeah. Only they know. Yeah, most probably it's laying in a certain way because your sun is shining in a certain way certain times of the year. And something to do with it. But I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So yeah, let's go back. So, in metalwork, they formed the desired object out of wax, enclosed it in clay, and by baking it hardened the clay and melted the wax at the same time. Molten metal was poured into the hollow clay bowls. Now we're still making molds.
Yeah, we do.
We're still making molds and do things. So just think how far back that it started.
Yeah.
So we cannot say we started nowadays with that. It is thousands of years back. I can't say millions. It's thousands of years back that they made it. Okay. They also learned that bronze could be produced by adding tin to copper, and we still have bronze. A product stronger and more durable for making knives, swords, and other items. The Sumerian school trade scribes, secretaries, what we have today, and administrative personnel. Social economic developments, social classes arose and economic exploitation and social unrest developed in the 3rd millennium before Christ. The priest developed into a wealthy class. Now what would I say? We can't call them Christians. What denomination today do we know that came from past that is still want to be very wealthy? That was actually in the wrongdoing side. That was there also. The Roman Empire.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still busy with the Pope and all their monies. And they still got the money and the wealth. You know? So it's still running.
Yeah.
Still running. So the priests developed into a wealthy class and managed to possess of the gods. The possession of their gods. Definitely not my God. The temples grew into powerful economic centers. So their temples was just, that is why the Roman Catholic Church, their church, so because it's the same thing. It's not this, they want smart stuff, like the old little gardens that they had. That is where they come from. Owning much of the land and absorbing much of the products, rents, and temple dues. The king was lowered from heaven. Now listen. The king was lowered from heaven by the gods to keep earthly order. Elaborate palaces were built. The uncovered tombs of one queen of about 2,500 before Christ has demonstrated the wealth of the royal family. But if you don't really go and you look at the king and queen, she's not Elizabeth, king and queen Camilla and King Charles now from Britain, they is the richest people.
Yeah.
And see how they live. They've got a few palaces.
Yeah.
All of the best. You see, so this is still the kings and so on is going on. They are supposed to keep God's word in check, but they don't do it anymore because they're bringing other cultures and beliefs into their churches now. Code of law. Cries of oppression brought efforts to establish justice and protect the rights of men. Urukagini of Lagish boosted the law and contracting with city guards not to deliver orphans and widows to men of power. His efforts stopped when he was defeated by the neighboring king. Efforts to establish law codes protecting human rights came in succeeding generations, and the most famous was established by Hammurabi in the 18th century before Christ. Now you can fill in, now you can see where the Hammurabi come from. You know what the thing looked like, where it comes from, you see. And human rights, now you can see, they're still struggling with human rights, but now it's getting too much.
Yeah.
You know, now they go overboard a bit. Now they're really going overboard. War and imperialism. Since each city had a god, their god, the wars were considered to be struggles between the gods of the represented cities. Pride and profit gained by military conquest encourages leaders to engage in war. So, you know, really, I don't know why everybody wants to fight, but they wanted to fight, and they still want to fight.
Yeah.
Right, let's see as the rise of the Akkadians. Sumerian civilization was reaching a peak of the lower Mesopotamia. A Semitic-speaking group of people were gaining strength to the north of the region of the Mediterranean, the middle Mesopotamia. There's the upper Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
And that's the lower Mesopotamia.
Lower Mesopotamia.
Okay? Right by the rivers. You see? That's the Euphrates going there, and that's the Tigris going there. So it's the lower and the upper. By the rivers. Between the rivers. Okay. About 2350 before Christ, King Sargon founded a new capital city, Akkad, and became the first Semite to speak political power by extending his control to other parts of Mesopotamia. In his inscriptions, Sargon claimed to have ruled from the upper to the lower sea, from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. Akkad, there, today, is apparently the old Akkad.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, Red Sea. If I'm right, the Mediterranean Sea in the Persian Gulf is in that too. If I'm right. Okay. Right. So again, everything is around there. Archaeological sources give evidence that he and his powerful guardian Namnam Sin extended their control to Nineveh about 2196 to 2160 before Christ. This success are attributed to the goddess Ishtar. Inanna in Mesopotamia, goddess of humanity and fertility. Well, you got that already. You know what they look like. The goddess. But I never thought I'd get such a laugh. Look at this toes.
Yeah.
They look like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You see,
It's true.
That was just comic. But anyway, so yeah. The eternal struggle of his kingdom and the invaders from the hills of Elam, the Gideons. The hills of Elam was more or less in that area.
Oh yeah, that's
It's the hills
okay.
of Elam.
Oh, okay.
Okay? The Gideons brought the first Mesopotamian empire to an end. Ahari was completely destroyed and never restored. Remember, I said Ahari is there.
Yeah.
Agat, that was the old Ahari. So they came and they destroyed it.
Destroyed it.
Yeah, they totally destroyed it. Okay. Mesopotamia bring a number of Semitic dialects, namely Eastern Canaanites or Amorites, and those who spoke Aramaic and eventually Arabic. The rise of Ur, that is the rise of Ur there at the bottom. There you can see a circle there at the bottom. See, it's still in the same area. The rise of Ur. Power struggle developed between the cities of Lachish and Ur for the control of Umar. Now, Umar, interesting, Umar is apparently Sumer. It's the same place. And this is that place, that area. Okay, that is Sumer.
Okay.
That whole area there. Okay. Umar, oh there right. Umar is Sumer and the whole area marked on the map, that is Sumer.
Okay.
Yeah, made that. Okay, that is Sumer. Ur-Nummu, who established the third dynasty of Ur, subdued much of Mesopotamia, and his successors continued to rule from almost a century, about 2060 to 1950 before Christ. Ur-Nummu compiled a law code which attempted to enforce honest weights and measures and to prevent the orphans falling prey to the wealthy. For bodily injury to another, the guilty party was to be punished by payment of a fine. The dominance of Ur was short-lived. Semitic nomads called Amuru, the biblical Amorites or Westerners, and we're still Westerners, migrated from the Arabian desert and gained control of the important cities. The Elamites later captured Ur, and Abram's family may have departed from Ur at the time of the fall of the third dynasty of Ur. Now this is where the interesting part is coming in. This is very interesting. The Garden of Eden. The word of Eden, the word for Eden, may be related to the Sumerian Akkadian Edemu, meaning wilderness or flat land. The Septuagint word in Greek used to translate Eden means garden of delight. The Garden of Eden River divided into 4 branches, as we read in Genesis 2 and further. The name of the third river, there's it, Hiddekel, is certainly the Tigris. And the fourth is identified as Euphrates, as we read in Genesis 2 verse 13 and further. The first 2 rivers, Pison and Gihon, have not been identified. The writer of Genesis placed the beginning of man in Mesopotamia, where early civilization developed. Mesopotamia, that area that we discussed now.
Yes.
Now, when this manual was written, that you have in your hand, they did not identify the Persian and the Gihon River yet. Now, this is new. There are a lot of writings in interest of where the rivers of Pison and Gihon were. One of these writings was done by Gaines R. Johnson with his doctorate in theology, the Bible, Genesis and Geological Ministry, the lost rivers of the Garden of Eden found. Now, I didn't look at the whole book, I looked at the article and I just took some interesting stuff out. To look at this possibility, of where the Garden of Eden is or was, we need to look at the passages inside the descriptions of the rivers given in Genesis as well as other passages in the scripture. We can't just decide, so we must look at that. The literal wording of the Bible or the geological and geographical realities of what a river head means, we must look at that. What does it mean when you talk in the Bible of a river head? What does it mean? Okay? Headwaters or sources of origin. So what does that actually mean? Both the Euphrates rivers and the Tigris rivers originate in Turkey, very close to each other in a mountainous terrain. That is actually, the heads mean is where it originates, where it comes from.
Yes.
Okay? So let's look at that.
Okay.
If you look here, I marked it here. This is there. That is by the Armenian Taurus range. That is where the Euphrates is starting.
Yes.
Okay? The Tigris is starting by the Armenian Taurus, not by the range.
Okay.
So it's really very close to the same, mountain range area, if you can say it like that. They're coming from there. Then they're coming down and they join here before they enter into the sea. You see them? They join at the bottom and then they go into the sea. That's the two rivers. Cited from King James Bible in 1611, Daniel 10 verse 1 say, and in the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hedical. The vision that Daniel had while with the children of Israel in Babylon captivity would put Daniel somewhere in the area of present-day Iraq. Therefore, would make the present-day Tigris River the Hedical river that was spoken of. The biblical or the Bible mentions that river flows towards the eastern of Assyria. The historical map of the location of Assyria shows that the Tigris goes southeastwards. If you look at Iraq, so there's Iraq. You see, there's Iraq. And there's Syria.
Yeah.
You see, so it's more or less there where they say it's going. That's Iraq and Syria going down.
Yeah.
The Assyrian Empire was centered near Nineveh, but the empire extended into what is present-day Syria and Palestine. The Bible mentions that the river of Persian compassed the whole land of Heval, that the gold recently discovered in the fossil river. So, if you look at this map, you must remember that as it goes up here, the river goes up here, but there's they say that it's actually going towards Palestine and Israel. What's doing there? There's a split. I will show you the split just now. There's a split going through Palestine. Okay, Palestine is more Israel's side. It's here right at the point here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's Israel's side. Now, I can explain just now what's happening there. The Assyrian Empire was centered near Nineveh, but the empire extended into present-day Syria and Palestine. The Bible, now I think Syria, you can also see here, Syria is on to this side, here it's coming over already. You see, here it's coming over here. The Bible mentions the river Pison compasses the whole land of Hivali, with where they were going. Recently discovered the fossil river which runs from the western mountain of Saudi Arabia towards Kuwait. What happened here is, if you go down to a better map, it actually, they say in the Bible it's going through the Jordan, so it's going up here, coming through here, going through Palestine, around the Jordan, and it's coming. That is actually it's all that river or going down, splitting here, you will see just now. But it's going up, this is the two rivers, going up, going down, going around there, through Palestine, those areas, coming down, and all that one, you will see all that one always split at the bottom. This is Havilah, is here at the bottom, is Havilah, and if you're going down, there's the other area we're going to talk about just now. Okay. So that is the other area. Recently discovered is the Fossa River, which runs from the western mountains of Saudi Arabia towards Kuwait. The river is now a dry riverbed. The old path was detected by satellite imaging. Many have speculated that this was the ancient Persian, as it was been dry since the 3,500 before Christ. Key one was that one, that circle. That is the one they're talking about. Okay, the mountains mirrored another range of mountains in the western side of the Red Sea. The Red Sea is a tectonic spreading zone, a part of the Great Rift System that runs from northward in Turkey down to the Dead Sea along the length of the Red Sea and then southward deep into the African continent. Therefore, when the mountain range was split by the rift, the source waters of the proposed Persian River would have dried up. Genesis 2 verse 13 say, Gidon, the same is it that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. So where's Ethiopia?
Ethiopia is in Africa.
It's running down Africa. Okay? So, the Gordon River compasses the whole land of Ethiopia, which is the African land area west of the Red Sea or southward. The river formerly flowed down what is now the Red Sea basin and southward into Africa at the Alpha Triangle. It would fit the description of a river that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. All four of these rivers has one thing in common. All are connected to the Great Rift. I will expand that. Two of the rivers of Eden were to the north of Israel, and active remnants of which presently originate out of Turkey to the north, and two other rivers of Eden were in the south of Israel. The geographical center is somewhere near the general region of present-day Israel and the Jordan. As I said, there's the Jordan. It was one river that split into two. It was one river split into two. Now, was it that river or was it here at the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
Are you with me?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So that is what the Bible says. Okay? So can we go down? Now that is the rift.
Yeah.
Okay? When you run the name Eden through a search of the Bible among several references, the following ones provide some insight clues. Ezekiel 31 verse 3 to 9. Let's see what does the Bible say. Behold, the Syrian was a cedar in Lebanon, which fair branches and which is shadowing shroud, and of an high statue. And his top was among the thick boughs. The water made his great, the deep set him up and high with her rivers, running round about his plants, and sent out her little rivers unto all the trees of the field. Therefore his high was exalted above all the trees and the field, and his boughs were multiplied, and his branches became long because of his multitude of waters. When he shot forth, all the fowls of heaven made their nest in his boughs, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field bring forth their young, and under his shadow dwelt all great nations. This was a fair in his greatness, in the length of his branches, for his root was as great waters. The cedars in the garden of God would not hide him. The fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches. Not any tree in the garden of God was like unto him in his beauty. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches. so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. In this passage, it is mentioned that the Assyrian was in Lebanon. The trees is the passage referred to meat and leaders. Elsewhere in the Bible, cedar trees are mentioned in reference to Lebanon are in Judges 9 verse 15, Psalm 29 verse 5 and 104 verse 16, Songs of Solomon 5 verse 15, Isaiah 2 verse 13, Jeremiah 22 verse 23 and etc. In Ezekiel 31 verse 8, it mentions that these trees are associated with Eden, that were in the garden of God.
Yeah.
Lebanon is not part of modern political Israel, but was part of the biblical lands ruled by the kings of Israel. The garden and the source of the rivers of the garden were somewhere close to the land of Lebanon. The great river fault system could cause a change in the rivers or dried up. This could happen in 101 years after Noah's flood, as given in Genesis 10 verse 25 and in 1 Chronicles 1 verse 19, where it is mentioned, earth was divided. With the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 19 verse 28, it was probably a tectonic volcano activity in the Rift Valley in Abraham's day. Evidence for the Israel and Lebanon region of the location of Edom and the Lost River finds considerable support in the Bible because God considers the land of Israel as his holy land. It was upon one of the mountains of the land of Moriah, Genesis 32 verse 2, where Abraham was told to sacrifice his son. Solomon was told to build a temple at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, 2 Chronicles 3 verse 1, and Jerusalem was where the Lord Jesus was actually crucified. When Jesus Christ established his kingdom, the righteous temple in Jerusalem, the Bible speaks of the river flowing from below the temple. The prophet Ezekiel spoke to seeing this in a vision. I'm not going to totally read that, but we read that that's underlined in Ezekiel 47. These waters issue out towards the east country and go down in the desert and go into the sea, which be brought forth into the sea. The water shall be healed. And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whatsoever the river shall come, shall live. And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither. For they shall be healed, and everything shall live whether the river cometh. And it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from Engedi even into Engline. There shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kinds, and the fish of the great sea exceeds many. And that was what they did, that the rivers was like before in the Garden of Eden. That is what the rivers was like, right at the bottom. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issued out of their sanctuary. And the fruit therefore shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine. Mm-hmm. So it will go back into what it was before. With a new kingdom that God is coming to. Now we go back. What is a great rift? Now this is quite interesting, because there is really a rift, a tectonic rift in the area. You can see there it's going. I'm not going to name all the different rifts, and this is shifting that way. The part you see there, it's going up. So it's parting, you know, the area is parting now. That is what they talk about the rift. Now, if you look at a world card, a chart at the moment, you can see this is just one part. There's a lot. There's one lake. There's going exactly going there through There it's going exactly where they showed. There's the Mesopotamia. There's the rivers there's Jerusalem is like, you see, exactly there it's going through. A rift, it's split, it's divided. Okay, so it's there. The rift is there, the dividing of the... Now, they reckon if you pushed all that together, that in actual fact, it was one continent. And it is possible. I'm going to say it to you just now. Why it is possible the whole earth could have been in one flood. If it's one continent. Yeah. Now, something very interesting. Now, you know now that everything happened here.
Yeah.
So the flood was also happen here. Is that right? The flood was also here because everything happened here.
Yeah.
But now, if it wasn't one continent, then we wouldn't have get flood stuff here. If it wasn't the whole continent thing.
Yeah.
But if it was like it was everywhere and it was possible that everything is together, then it can be almost everything. Can I prove it to you?
Yeah.
If it was now one continent or not, that's the one continent we spoke about, if it's possible. There is also a rift, now just for interest, before we got the proof, you know that's on news everywhere that Africa is splitting at the moment. You know about it? You don't know about it. You must, you must get the news. Africa is at the moment splitting from that part right through. Okay. It is busy splitting at the moment. Very slowly, but it is busy splitting. The continent is busy shifting. Okay? you must go and have a look there. This is busy splitting. That is what they reckon what's going to happen. It's splitting there at the side. You see? It's busy splitting. Okay. Now, if you look at the full earth, you can see there's a lot of tectonic plates moving. You see them all over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. It's not only one, there's a lot of them. Okay. Now, before we come to the flood that I want to prove to you, we need to go over to the flood.
Yeah.
Okay? Because now we've got the proof of the top stories.
Okay.
Now we're going to go over to flood to prove it because it's lying in one thing. That is the Grand Canyon. Now we're going to use the Grand Canyon to prove the flood.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, eh?
Yeah, it is.
It's beautiful. That is in North Arizona. You know where's North Arizona?
Yeah.
That's the Grand Canyon. Okay. In that Grand Canyon, there are different layers of stone. Now remember, I told you in there where they're underneath the Temple Mount.
Yes.
The different years stuff they can see.
Yeah.
Exactly the different stones, the different what happened layers, eh? And they name it. But that is flat layers, this is the great uncomfortable layers, that is there's a different layers. You can see there's different layers. Okay?
Yeah.
Layers that's going there. There's that we're focusing on the Coconino sandstone. That's that layer. That's a Coconino sandstone. Okay? We're going to focus on that one. We've got the Kai Bips. Whoa, hulle het name hierso. The Toro Whip, whatever. They got all the different names there, and we again focus on that layer.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to focus on that layer. They got their scientific names there. Okay, now we're first going to talk. So, a story of the flood, very similar to the biblical, has been found in the Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian writings. About 275 before Christ, Berosus, a Babylonian priest, compiled the history of Babylonia, which contains a flood story. Although his work has been lost, extracts from it were collected by Greek historians and transmitted to us. It appears that the Babylonian account of the flood can be dated about 2000 before Christ. This account depicts Gilgamesh. We already discussed Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
The proof of the flood. Now this is something not in your book. Footprints of sand dunes in the Grand Canyon stones was a book written and research done by Dr. Andrew S. Snelling and Dr. Steve Austin on December 1992. The canyon stretched from 446 kilometers through northern Arizona, attains a depth of more than 1.6 kilometers and a range from 6.4 kilometers to 29 kilometers in width. This was big. In the walls of the canyon can be seen flat-lying rock layers that were once sand, mud, and lime. There is visible thick, pale buff color to almost white sandstone near the top of the canyon walls. These different layers of the rocks were given names, and that I told you now, and I'll show that to you.
Names, yeah.
Okay? The geologists study the features within rock layers like the Coconino sandstone and the sand grains themselves. The Coconino sandstone is a distinct cross layers of sand within it called cross bed. In the Coconino sandstone, a large number of fossilized footprints are noted called trackways. These tracks have been made by four-footed vertebrates moving across the original sand surfaces. These footprints were compared to the track made by reptiles on desert sand dunes. This research program involved careful survey and detailed measurements of 82 fossilized vertebrate trackways discovered in the Coconino sandstone along the Hermit Train in the Grand Canyon. Now I remember the names of the areas. He then observes the measures 236 experimental trackways made by living amphibians and reptiles in experimental chambers. The tracks were beneath the water and on moist sand at the water's edge. And on dry sand, the sand mostly sloped at an angle. Observations were also made of the underwater locomotion of 5 species of salamanders, that is the amphibians, both in the laboratory and in the natural habitat. And measurements were again taken of their trackways. Detailed statistical analysis of these data led to the conclusion, with a high degree of probability, that the fossil tracks must have been made underwater, whereas the experimental animals produced footprints under all test conditions, both up and down the slopes of the library dunes. All but one of the fossil trackways could only have been made by animals in question climbing uphill, the fossils. The imprints were generally distinct, whereas the prints of the soles were indistinct. These and other details were present in over 80% of the fossils, underwater and wet sand tracks. But less than 12% of the dry sand and dump sand tracks had any toe marks. The observations of the locomotive behavior of the living salamanders indicated that all spent the majority of their locomotion time walking on the bottom, underwater, rather than swimming. Therefore, the animals must have been entirely underwater and moving upslope in an attempt to get out of the water. Now, very interesting. The interpretation fits with the concept of the global flood, which overwhelmed even 4-footed reptiles and amphibians that normally spend most of their time in the water. The tracks revealed that again all but one moved up cross-bed slopes. The animals were moving in one direction while the feet were pointing in a different direction. The animals were walking in a current of water, not air. Other trackways start on or stop abruptly with a sign that the animals' missing tracks were covered by some distance, such as shifting segments. Now, what I mean there is, say for instance, this is a mountain where there's sand.
Yeah.
So what's happening? The animals' feet is this side, and they're trying to get away.
Mm.
So the toes is showing this way, so they're fighting against water.
Oh, okay.
They're coming from this side, pushing, and they're fighting against. Otherwise, they would have walked most this side, upward.
Yeah.
But they're going against water, that's pushing them.
Okay.
That's what I mean there. What's happening there? In other words, there's something pushing them, and those animals is normally walking in water, they're normally with water, but they going against the water there. The toes is showing against them.
Oh, yeah.
As I say, they would have gone that way if they walked up, and it's not a problem, but they're going that way. Something is pushing them, so they're going against it. Okay? That's the first thing. So, what happened here, there's the feet they found. So in other words, those toes would have shown downwards.
Yeah.
You see, that's the feet they found there.
Okay.
To prove that animals were walking the wrong way around.
Mm.
Something were pushing them. And suddenly the feet is gone. So what happened? The water lifted them.
Yeah.
So there's no feet. No feet marks. Weiser has interpreted the Kakininu sandstone as a submarine sand wave deposit accumulated by water. Within the Kakino sandstone is featured non-technically as a particulation, which is known as the commonly formed as sand surface during the brief erosion burst beneath first flowing water. He uses the feature as evidence of viscous water current accumulation in the sand, which forms the Kakino sandstone. Evidence is available that the Kakino sandstone was deposited by the ocean and not by the desert accumulation of sand dunes. The crossbeds within the Kakino sandstone are evidence that ocean currents moving the sand rapidly as dune-like mounds called sand waves. As the depth of the water increases, so does the height of the sand waves which are produced. So the sand waves, as they come in,
Yeah.
you see, it comes in. They could see on those Kakino sand. They could see how it came in.
Right.
This enormous volume of sand would have to have been transported a considerable distance, up to 320 or 480 kilometers. At the current velocities, envisaged sand could be transported that distance in a matter of a few days. These examinations of evidence of the flood back up the processes of catastrophic depositions of sand by deep, fast-moving water in a matter of days, totally considered with conditions envisaged during the flood. It's proven that it happened. Now, where is the Grand Canyon and where do they stay? Here,
Yeah.
it's Mesopotamia where they stay, and there is the Grand Canyon.
Good cousin, yes.
So, it was a worldwide flood.
Yeah.
It could be that all the places were still at once. Whatever the case be, it's a worldwide flood. It's proven.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, just the last part. So, what proof do we have of the flood? There's Mount Ararat,
Yeah.
where they found the boat. There's the ark from the top view.
Okay.
There's the ark. There's a radar scan of the ark. They found it. That's the layout from the side. That's more or less what the ark's layout is. There's from the top how they laid it out. There you can see. This is a This is the rib timber. It's quite interesting. Online you can actually see videos about it.
Oh, okay.
It's the rib timber. It's quite interesting. There they're sitting inside of the ark. That was the anchor. Yeah, that was one of the anchors of the ark.
Okay. Also, that boat is that.
That is the ark, the boat. That's the real boat.
Oh.
That is also a scan of the ark because it's now underneath.
Yes.
You know, it's underneath. it. That's a scan of the boat.
Yeah.
That is part of the wood that they found.
Okay.
That is the ark lying on the mountain there. That is on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That's the mountain. And the conclusion of all of this. The archaeological discovery in Mesopotamia have given us much information on the culture and customs of Abraham's ancestors. Genesis is attributed traditionally to Moses, who would not have recorded the account of creation before 1400 before Christ. It should be expected that creation and flood stories would be handed down orally from an early period. In comparing Genesis to other early accounts, it is obvious that the author was guided by God's Spirit.